Are you looking for the ultimate fine dining experience in Los Angeles? Might I suggest Winky Dinky Dog? Howdy, I'm Jeff Goldsmith, and this is the Q&A. My agenda is simple. Each week, I plan to bring you in-depth insights into the creative process of storytelling. And folks, I have one today that is like a dream episode for me. We have Robert Townsend, the writer, director, and star of Hollywood Shuffle. And the Criterion Collection has recently released a beautiful transfer. I mean, just beautiful. It's got the Criterion treatment. There's a fantastic commentary on the disc because Robert was very thoughtful about looking back at his own movie and kind of guides you through it. There's other bonus features as well, but this was fun for me because as a theater and film kid, the first time I ever saw Black Acting School, which is one of the sketches in the movie, if you've never seen it, go to YouTube right now, watch Black Acting School, and you will understand what Hollywood Shuffle is about. It is just a biting satire of Hollywood, but it was also a very independently financed and made film that really took off. It launched the career for Robert Townsend, the writer, director, star, and many other comedians that you see in the movie as well. But I cannot recommend this film highly enough, and we were so lucky to have writer, director, star Robert Townsend with us to discuss his film, so I know you'll dig this episode. And speaking of things to dig, I hope you check out Backstory Magazine over at backstory.net. You could read us on a desktop or laptop or via our iPad app, Backstory. And you know, folks, we just posted our Oscar issue timed with the Oscars. But of course, now that the Oscars are over, please keep in mind that there is tons of non-Oscar content in Backstory Magazine as well. In fact, we keep updating our magazine with new movies and TV shows as they come out. So you could read about everything from Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves, to the fourth John Wick movie, which we also have in this issue that we continue to update. Of course, if you want to test drive us and you've never read us before, you could read our free issue. And if you like what you see, and I hope you do, and you want to become a subscriber, I'm giving you discount coupon code SAVE5, and that'll save you $5 off a 1-year subscription to Backstory Magazine. So look, it would really mean a lot to me for my podcast listeners and iTunes and Spotify and my YouTube watchers of the Backstory Magazine YouTube page, which is where all these Zoomcasts go. You could see us talk on the Backstory Magazine YouTube page, but it would really mean a lot to me to have you consider becoming a subscriber to Backstory Magazine. So thanks for considering. But now, without any further ado, let's jump right into my interview with writer, director, star Robert Townsend about his Criterion edition of his film, Hollywood Shuffle. Robert, it's good to see you. How you doing?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you for taking time to talk with me.
Well, no, thank you for doing this, because I have got to tell you, this is just one of my favorite films, and I saw it as a teenager. Nobody owned films really in those days, but we would go get this at Blockbuster as often as we could. And it would just be thrown on when we come back from a night of going out. And I just love it. But I want to give people a snapshot biographically who you are, from whence dost thou hail. You know, to my knowledge, the Black Actors Guild in Chicago was kind of your foray into all this. And you were acting at a very young age. Tell me about that experience and kind of what was eye-opening about it for you.
So I'm from Chicago. I grew up on the west side of Chicago, and I grew up in a really rough neighborhood. So my journey started when I was 10 years old. So at 10, because there were gangs everywhere, my mother was afraid that I was going to get recruited by one of the gangs. And so she said, when you get out of school, run straight in the house. I ran in the house, and all I did was watch TV. Right. I watched so much TV, they nicknamed me TV Guide. And I could literally tell you everything about television. And it wasn't just ABC, NBC, CBS, it was also PBS. So I would watch the foreign French films. So that's 10 to 11, 12. And then I started speaking at different things at school. And at 14, I found my way to the Experimental Black Actors Guild called XBAG. And I was the youngest member at 14. And so I'm around actors, writers, directors, producers, and I fall in love with theater. So that's how my journey really started as a kid.
That's awesome. I know in the commentary, and by the way, Criterion has released just the most beautiful Blu-ray of this. It is gorgeous. For somebody who has seen the film many times, I gotta say, I was shocked for how crisp that transfer is. It's really beautiful. And you did a fantastic job of prepping for the commentary as well. You really guide us through it. You had mentioned Rodney Dangerfield kind of being a mentor. And I'm just curious what you could tell us about working with Rodney Dangerfield as a young comedian breaking in.
So I'm in New York City at the time. Me and my best friend are regulars at the club, Keenan Ivory Wayans. And I would watch Rodney Dangerfield get ready for his Tonight Show sets. And back then to do the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson could change your life, change your career. And early on, I would watch Rodney Dangerfield come in and he would work 5 minutes of material and he would work that every little joke, every and and then he would go outside and then just wait. Like sometimes he'd do two shows, like I'd be on after him later, but you had Jay Leno was the host back then. You had Robert Klein, you had Billy Crystal, you had Robin Williams, Andy Kaufman. So when Rodney Dangerfield came in, he only did 5 minutes. The other guys could do 30 or 40 an hour, but he was just working his Tonight Show set. And so years later, when I eventually moved to Los Angeles, and I would see him and he would go, Townsend, how you doing, Townsend? Townsend. And so I would see him and he goes, I'm doing this young comedian special. I want you to be on it, Townsend. And I was like, really? And it was me, Jerry Seinfeld, Roseanne Barr, a dude named Bob Nelson. And that was my first shot. I remembered him from New York days, but he remembered me and asked me to be a part of his young comedian special on HBO.
One of the things about Hollywood Shuffle that's fantastic is showing just how badly written gang roles were for so many movies at the time. But I would be remiss if I did not mention young actor Robert Townsend was in two of Walter Hill's utter classics, The Warriors and Streets on Fire. And those are just crazy movies that I feel are outside of the scope of what you are correctly parodying and tearing down in Hollywood Shuffle, because there's such strange portrayals of any type of villains, because those people are just all possessed. What was it like being on those sets? Because that must have been a kind of wild and crazy experience for you.
Let me say this about Walter Hill. He has a really stylized vision. So even his take on street gangs is different. So he wasn't looking at any kind of stereotypical box. He was like, Warriors, we just had fun because the world was such a heightened, stylized visual world. So I was in the riffs, so for those that don't know the movie, The Warriors is about a gang summit in New York City. All the gangs have come together to make peace. And then the guy who's giving the speech, Cyrus, that's the leader of my gang, he gets shot. And then people say, who did it? The Warriors. And it's the Warriors trying to get home. So I shot for a week in Central Park. And Cyrus gets shot. And there's all the gangs scattering around. So I really didn't understand what was going on as a young actor, but I knew I was in something that was different. I knew that something about this feels different, and I couldn't put my finger on it. Then when I did Streets of Fire, I was in the group, the Sorrells. It was me, Michael T. Williamson, Stoney Jackson, and Grant Bush, and we were a singing group. And, we were on this, and Willem Dafoe, I just remember because I saw Willem at the Independent Spirit Awards, and he goes, we did a movie together. And I said, what movie? Because we didn't have any scenes together. But I just remember how they were lighting and how Walter was setting up his shots, and he was creating a rock and roll fable because we had the processed hair, we had the thin suits, yeah. Diane Lane, Michael Pare, it was just, and that was like, oh man, that was like almost 3 months at Universal on the back lot. That was the sweetest gig ever because we were there a long time. I just remember getting my hair processed and in the suits, and we would be dancing, and I Can Dream About You became a hit song. And Dan Hartman, who performs the song and wrote the song, he's white, but everybody thought when they said the song, I Can Dream About You, of us, because we were in the music videos lip syncing. So I just remember that was a fiasco, but I had the best time.
That's awesome. And being there for the Cyrus scene in The Warriors with just so many people. I mean, like, that's yes. The thing about that scene. Like, I would guess that would be the biggest set with the largest group of extras that you'd been involved in.
Let me say this. Keenan was getting a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Austin Film Festival, and they were also giving a Lifetime Achievement to Walter Hill. And I got a chance to shout out to say to Walter, hey, man, thank you. And I told the whole story about how I was an extra out there that day. Yeah. He was like, what? And I was like, man, I learned about directing. And he also upgraded me because I didn't want to, because when Cyrus gets shot, they say it's chaos. Everybody's running like crazy. And that was one of those nights where I was like, I don't want to run like crazy. So I'll be the one soldier that stays near the body, Cyrus's body. So when they said action, I ran to the body. Everybody else was running. And then after it was over with, the first AD comes over and says, the director really liked what you did. What's your name? I said, Robert Townsend. He goes, you just got upgraded. You're going to make more money. And I was like, whoa. And it kind of changed my thinking a lot about directing in the whole world.
Getting into Hollywood Shuffle, I mean, I guess as you explain, and it's kind of well known, but as you lay it out in the commentary on the Blu-ray, you would kind of reach this apex in which you were in Norman Jewison's A Soldier Story with Denzel Washington. You had been going up through the ranks as an actor. And I think you could take it from there as to what led to the kernel of the idea for Hollywood Shuffle.
So when you're a young actor, you just have dreams of playing every part, everything is there. And then I found myself in a box and auditioning for all the, negative stereotypical roles. And that's what they were offering for, young actors, and at a certain point, I got fed up. I was like, man, this is my life. I'm just, another pimp, another hustler, another, oh, this guy works in a pool hall. Okay. Oh, he's an illiterate basketball player. Okay. So it was like all of these, right. I can shoot jump shots, but I cannot read, and I was like, oh, not this guy again. So Soldier Story changed my life because it was well written. Charles Fuller, the writer. It was well directed, Norman Jewison. And it was well cast. We all knew each other. I knew Denzel. I knew David Allen Greer. I knew Adolph Caesar. We were all from the theater from New York. And so after I did that film and we got nominated for 3 Academy Awards, I was like, I want to do more. And my agent was like, no, they only do one movie, Robert, with Black people like this. You did it. Shut up. Get back into another pimp, another da-da-da-da. And then I was so frustrated that I said, you know what? I'm not going to complain. I'm just going to make my own movies. And somebody's like, well, what do you know about, you didn't go to film school. You never directed a short. You don't know nothing. And I go, yeah, but I'm not going to do this no more. I'm going to do something different. And my best friend, who is still my best friend to this day, Keenan Ivory Wayans, Keenan goes, Rob, you going to make a movie? And I go, Keenan, we're going to die doing this crap. And he goes, I believe in you. Let's make a movie. And I took my life savings, $60,000 at the time. And I said, I don't know, let's go. And because I came out of theater, I understood how to mount a production because like by osmosis, I was watching the director because I was there in the theater. I was watching the costume person. I was watching. So that started our journey to make, Hollywood Shuffle.
This is the mid 80s, and independent film at the time was on a slow rise that really came to fruition more in the 90s. And for you as a young filmmaker, who were your influences that you're looking to? Because I could cite obviously Melvin Van Peebles for Sweet Sweetback, and Spike Lee's She Gotta Have It came out in 86. This movie, The Hollywood Shuffle, came out in 87. So figuring out your path, I got to say, and I know that this is nothing new to say, but you were really pioneering. You were trailblazing. You were cutting the brush out of the front of your path to make room for the way you wanted to go. And I'm just curious what your touchstones were for reference at the time.
I didn't know my history. I didn't know anything of the history. To be honest, I didn't know that Oscar Micheaux existed, that he was a filmmaker back in the turn of, the beginning of the century, where he was writing, directing, producing, and doing the distribution of his films around the country. Spike was on the East Coast. I didn't know Spike existed. I was just in my own head, like, I'm frustrated. What am I going to do? I did not know about Melvin Van Peebles, because, it's like you go to the movies, you watch movies, you don't really go, who directed this movie? Who is that? You're just I'm an actor. Okay, can I play that part? So it was never about, I'm going to be a director. So once I got fed up with, the auditions and all of that, I just kind of figured it out. And because I saw people of color in the theater that were directors, writers, producers, it wasn't intimidating to me to say, oh, I could direct. I grew up in the theater and I was in those rooms auditioning and working and so on. So when it was time to pull the trigger, I just remember I took the cast through a acting boot camp to get everybody what I had learned from my mentors in theater. And so we were rehearsing and working it, and you do this and you do that, and let's do warm-ups. And we were doing the whole thing. And I was learning on the fly how to make a movie. So, oh, you scout locations. Oh, and okay, you have to pay for the locations. Oh, so then we got to find locations that the police can't see us. If they can't see us, then that's a good location. This is good. So everything, when you talk about being an indie hustler filmmaker, like you said, what was the 80s? The 80s, everybody was afraid of like, can I make a movie? I need money. We got to shoot with film. There was no digital shoot until the cows come home. It was all based on you got to buy film stock. You got to process the film stock. You got to get an editing machine, an 8-plate, and it's big and it's huge and it costs a lot of money. So I was just figuring out, like, oh, I could do it for this. Oh, if I do this, I could get around this. If I could do that. I scouted my locations early in the morning. So we shot on Sunday morning when the world was asleep.
Right.
So that, the police weren't looking for anybody. Everybody had a party Saturday night. So the world is quiet. People would meet at my house at 5:00. I did my first call sheet to say, meet here. I knew to shoot and not be shut down by the police, we had to be invisible. So I said, don't park in front of my house, park 3 blocks away, then walk over. So no one ever knew that we were shooting. There wasn't a lot of people outside talking, yeah, we're making a movie, blah, blah, blah. No. So I kind of learned my filmmaking manners. And to this day, I still move like I've been shooting a lot lately. And I move very fast, and they go like, well, Rob, why you move? You're one of the fastest directors. And I go, I think I still have that thing in my head the police are going to give me.
Did you even have a close call, or was there just never a time where you were going to be shut down?
No, every location I scouted, the police couldn't see the location. So when you see Attack of the Street Pimps and all of that shot Sunday morning, 7:00, 2 takes, 3 takes, short ends, out. Jump in the van, go to the next location. Dirty Larry shooting in between the buildings. That's downtown. 2 vans parked over there, everybody's car. So if you came down the street, you'd see a half a van and you wouldn't think anything like they're shooting something over there.
Right.
No. So everything, sneaking in the movies, going to that movie theater. I said, hey, we don't have money to pay for the theater, but we can clean up and we can mop the floors for 3 weeks, free. You got a deal. And we shot in the theater. You just got to be out by 11:00 because we got a movie starting in here. Got it.
At the Baldwin Theater, as you pointed out on the commentary, which, no longer exists. So it was great that you were able to get in there and just record something to document that great location. Yeah.
So it was just figuring out how to make a movie. And it was my film school. Basically, it was my film school.
Here's why I think this is definitely a landmark film and something that, should be looked at as inspiring for young filmmakers, is that you were an actor who had enough talent to get as far as you did, but you had hit a wall and you were frustrated. And you took your own voice and you created this to really hold a mirror up to Hollywood and show the problems that were ongoing, in the hopes that because you were doing it comedically, which I think was key here, that there could be some solutions. So, I mean, I know we're in the non-spoiler section, but for anybody that is curious what this whole Hollywood Shuffle thing is about, I think this is what your first sketch was that you started with, Black Acting School.
Yes.
Just legendary. And it really kind of defines the film in which it shows what you were frustrated about and you took a comedic approach. Was that really part of your original design document? Because it's not clear to me if there ever was a full script or more of a sketch-based outline.
No, when we initially started, it was just sketches. And it was just, hey, like the Black Acting School, it was a stand-up piece I used to do in my act, and I played all the characters. So I would, do the whole thing of it's Hollywood's first Black Acting School. You can learn, you can be a street thug, and then it's like, say, man, what you doing, mama? And I would do all the different parts. And then Keenan was like, Rob, we should make that into a full sketch. And I was like, what? He goes, yeah, we have the actors come in and we're on a set and, and we have the instructors. And it was like, oh man. But I used to do that in my act. And so then we just took it and just said, okay. And we cast all these actors and we just said, okay, this one, this one, this one. And we rehearsed it and we made it like a commercial. And I was the spokesperson, but it was combining all the images that we had, because I'm a film historian when it comes to Black films and, like Humphrey Bogart, and here's looking at you and Dooley Wilson. And when I see those movies where they have Mantan Moreland and Willie Best, and those Black actors were great, like Step and Fetch It, but they always had to do, no, sir, yeah, sir, I know, sir, she was here, sir. And I would go like, oh my God, when I started to study those movies, they're being directed that way. Everybody else is talking, so can you get my bags for me, Porter? Yes, I definitely, and I was like, oh my God. So when I used to do it on stage, I would do the Shuffling Willie. We called him Shuffling Willie back then. And I would do that guy. And then I would do the English, because I grew up in the theater. I could do any character, any voice.
Right.
But, part of it with the film was taking those different segments and really exploring them and giving them life.
Well, so was that your first idea that you realized, okay, I'm going to make a movie and this is our first sketch that we're going to do? Or what was your first idea? Because what's interesting about the structure of the movie is it's young Robert trying to make it through Hollywood, and it's infused with a bunch of daydreams, fantasies, fake TV commercials on the side, and it just interweaves back and forth. And I'm just curious when you realized that was going to be the structure, or if it was something that you developed along the way, knowing that originally you were just going to do Black Acting School as a sketch that you were going to film and see how it went.
We were really just looking at all the different things in our brain that we wanted to do. I wanted to do a black and white. I loved Humphrey Bogart, so I wanted to do a detective, and we wanted to put a contemporary touch. And so then Keenan says, oh, I'll play a character called Jerry Curl, and you can play, and it's all about his activator, but we'll make it look like it's in the 30s and, and we'll have that kind of vibe. Hey, we want to do something about critics because they don't give Black movies the right treatment. So why don't we do our Ebert and Siskel and then have it as two, homeboys, and then let them, trash some of the classic movies that people go, oh, that was Amadeus, so and so and so and so. And we go, I don't feel nothing, but the one about the hood, that's the one I like, So we were just putting ideas out there. Then eventually we said, wait a minute, we could connect this with this. And we could connect, but the first was just these big chunks and set pieces that we would go like, is this going to work? And then all of a sudden it was like, it's working. So I tell, people all the time, making movies and television shows, it's an organism that is constantly growing and shaping and moving. And, and that's what happened in this. We had one idea and it started to blossom and change and shift. And we just went with the flow.
What makes Black Acting School perfect satire isn't just all the different iterations that you're doing, including, as you just said, Step and Fetch It, which was sad to see. I came from a whole group of theater kids at the time. And so just kind of seeing actors going through that was something that resonated. But the topper of Black Acting School is you deciding to have white instructors who run Black Acting School. When did that idea come about? Because it just makes it perfect satire.
Well, that came out of hundreds of auditions where you have a casting director or director that demonstrates how to be Black. And a lot of times the directors were white, the casting directors were white. And then they had no problem like, come on, you got to get down with it. Come on, get jiggy, baby. Come on, and stick your lips out, can you do like this? and I just remember like doing that because you want the job. And I was like, woo, you never tell anybody like, oh man, that audition, so Keenan and I would talk about it, but back then it was a lot of degrading stuff or the lines made no sense. And then it's like, mama, you better flapperjack your butt over here because I ain't be into that at all, and they would give it, mama, you better flapperjack over here because I ain't be into that all. Try it one more time, please. I ain't be into that at all. And then walk away and let your butt move. Move that butt. You black guys have butts. Move those butts. And they would talk to us crazy. And you'd be like, okay, I'll move my butt. Thank you. All right. Flapperjack a mama. And you'd be trying to get the job.
That's insane. One of the after effects of this film is that it led to a higher sensitivity and just awareness of inclusion casting and diversity of storytelling over the years. And I guess I would ask all these years later, if you were to redo Black acting school now, what are some of the cliches, even though we're in a more enlightened time, that you feel storytelling can still be trapped in?
That's a good question. That's a very good question. I mean, I think now it probably would be some of the instructors would be Black, but they would be Black people that don't know anything about Black people. And so you'd be like, I'm from Harvard, and so anyway, let's do, sort of because, you have people that are in positions now that are people of color, but they have no experience with the real world. It's a disconnect. So I think, I haven't really thought about it, but it'll probably be something like that.
I'm curious, what could you tell the young filmmakers listening? Because you went on this journey of self-financing and, no big spoiler alert, but 60 grand didn't do it. You ended up, as you explained, having to start and stop. And you did that great trick of renting equipment for, a Friday shoot, but you would return it on Monday, so you would be able to shoot with it over the weekend. And you defined it as being 6 different production periods of 2 days each. So Hollywood Shuffle was made during 12 days. But they were not 12 consecutive days. You had to go out and work and get more money. What could you tell us about that experience of continuing to finance, continuing to refine? I would guess as the film is moving forward, based on what you've shot, you have a better sense of where you're going and what other coverage and scenes you want to do. Tell us about that.
Somebody says the T in Townsend stands for tenacious. The first time we saw dailies, Keenan and I were sitting in this little room in Photochem in Burbank. And it was just me and him. And we were looking at and Peter Deming, who's a cinematographer, who now is, a celebrated Hollywood, DP. And we were looking and it was like, it looks good. It's going to work. Oh my God. Rob, Keenan, oh man, And it was that moment of like bliss. Then you go, I want to do more of it. And how do I continue to shoot? And so at that point, the good news is that when you have a comrade that believes in you, you believe in them, and we're hard on each other. So that was the rocket fuel that kept me going, because you need somebody that really believes. And there were so many people that are negative that go, you can't make a movie for $60,000. You can't do that. You can't. And then I was like, I had to prove them wrong, because I had opened my big mouth and says, I'm making a movie. I don't care what you say. And then you figure it out. So every step of the way, the good news with shooting for the weekend, you go, okay, see the dailies. It's possible. Hey, I learned from that weekend. Next weekend, I can do it better this time. You learn from that. Then you run out of money. Then you go like, okay, I'm going to get some more money again, and I'm going to figure this out. And what did I learn from weekend 1? What did I learn from weekend 2? So going into weekend 3, I'm going to be even better. Oh, it's not about money. Sometimes it's about barter. So, hey, we shot the scene at Nick Stewart, who played my father in the little montage. He was Lightning in Amos and Andy, and he owned the Ebony Showcase Theater. So when we were talking about, yeah, boss, he was one of those guys that did it really, really well. And then there he is playing my father. Amos and Andy that the NAACP took off the air because they thought it was too stereotypical.
Right.
So along the way, we're learning all of these lessons. And so, hey, can we shoot over here? We asked Nick, can we shoot? He says, we don't have money to pay you, but your backyard is filled with refrigerators and all kind of stuff. We'll clean that up for you. Will you let us shoot? So I learned all of these things that had nothing to do with money. It just had to do with what can I do? How can I barter? Can I do your laundry? Can I wash your car?
Right.
So I just learned different lessons so that during that 12-day period over 2.5 years, I was constantly working on what the film is. Keenan and I are constantly doing rewrites. We're looking at people to cast and we're figuring it out. So it was just the possibilities can be endless if you apply yourself.
You mentioned something on the commentary track that is of the bygone era of film. You were shooting on short ends, and short ends are the part of, one of the camera loads that they don't need. So,
right. So you have a 10-minute magazine of film.
Yeah.
Loaded on the camera. You have 10 minutes. So, and the scene is 4 minutes. So you shoot 4 minutes, but if an actor flubs a line, you got to start over again. And if you don't have enough film in the camera, then you go, let's take that magazine off. There's 5.5 feet of film left. We can't do a whole take. Get another one. And then that 5.5 of film, they either throw it away or they sell it or what have you. And that kind of dictated the pace of how we were going to shoot as well.
So my question is, because I came out of USC Film School and I was doing little film projects early on in the 90s too, and we were using short ends. And I remember there was a place called Studio Film and Tape over on Highland.
Oh, yeah. I went there a lot.
They would sell them. And the terrifying thing, though, was that, remember, you were dependent on how careful that camera assistant was. And did they leave that short end in a hot baking car? Because there were a few times where we shot on short ends and we got burned because the film had just gone to crap. It wasn't refrigerated. It wasn't kept in a dark place, but they were happy to sell it to us and happy to have us develop it. So I was curious because, you're putting your movie on short ends. Did you ever have any short end errors, or did you just get lucky and you got the good film stock?
You know what? I'm going to, that's a Peter Deming. That's
okay.
My producer, Carl Craig, my other producer, Richard Cummings. They were on top of that. They were like, we got to protect the baby. We got to make sure, okay, let's move it now. Let's move it. Okay. And they have that little black bag thing and they be in there changing the film, and I'm just watching like, okay. And then they go, okay, it's on the way to the lab. Okay, where we're out. And there was a system. And again, when you talk about working with really talented people that care, I can't emphasize that enough. You got to care. Peter cared. Carl Craig cared, Richard Cummings cared. So we never had any snafus as it related to the film.
Yeah, I mean, the lesson of short ends ultimately became, would you risk everything else that you set up to save a little money on new film versus old film? And people started kind of moving away from short ends pretty fast. I know they don't exist now, but I just had to ask because literally with 12 shoot days. Well, so $60,000 is the number that you've put out there for this, but we're going to get into post in a second. What would you say, all said and done, it wound up costing?
I would say the film cost about $100,000 all said and done. But we were figuring
that's great.
There's always a way to make a deal. I mean, when we first started editing, we were editing at a porno facility in Chadsworth. And nice. So it was, so we were figuring out okay, you can get it really cheap over there because that's, they have a flatbed over there. But eventually we were able to figure out and make some deals. But early on, we were just, okay, how else can we do it cheaper? How can we do it cheaper? And we were just trying to figure it out.
I want to flash forward into your life as an artist for a second. Obviously, you were kind of, start and stop, and you had outlines, you had sketch ideas. But as you started doing more formalistic screenwriting, how important was outlining to your process when you sit down to write? Or do you outline or use cards?
You know what? Let me say this. I studied at Second City in Chicago. Right. So when I was 17, they wanted me to join the main company because I was like an improv baby. So as a writer, And same thing with Keenan, we can really flow. So we can say, oh, maybe the grandmother, blah, 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 blah. And we would just flow. And so once we knew we had something special in the can, then connecting the fibers to tell a story wasn't hard for us. I write on the legal pad, Keenan does jumping jacks, and we just start saying, okay, his grandmother, he should have the audition. Okay, let's have the audition. And we just kind of write it out. And then it's like, oh, this makes sense. Okay, yeah. Okay, he should go visit his uncle at a barbershop. And the uncle should not have the dream, and he plants a seed in Bobby. So we just Keenan's big on story, like I'm big on story. And we would just kind of improvise, like we would just play, okay, I'll be the mother now. Bobby's trying to do his life. Yeah, Bobby. I'm happy for you. I don't want no grandson of mine acting like, and that's how my grandmother was. So we would improvise, play the different parts. At a certain point, your instincts kick in and you go like, this is what it is.
That makes sense. Well, podcast listeners and iTunes and Spotify and YouTube watchers of the Backstory Magazine YouTube page, we are going to get into the spoilers. So if you have not yet seen Hollywood Shuffle, or if hopefully this conversation has piqued your interest and you want to go see it, press pause, go see it. Criterion has put out a beautiful new edition of it that I highly recommend, and come back because we're going to get into the spoilers. When you're doing a low budget movie, you might have ideas that are bigger than your budget. Was there anything you want to tell us about that was kind of on your dream page of things you wanted to do in Hollywood Shuffle that you just couldn't afford? You never even scripted, you never even tried to shoot, but maybe for a minute, an hour, a week, a month, you were really thinking about doing X.
No, there wasn't anything. I mean, because you got to understand, this was the first movie. So we were just putting our toes in the water and trying as many things that we could think of and just having fun. So when I think in terms of Attack of the Street Pimps, that was like, we're going to get everybody as pimps and they're zombies and and there's a chase scene and da-da-da-da. So the Black Acting School, we need to find an area where we need chairs and everything set up and da-da-da-da. So the end credits, we're going to do a big musical number. And I want to and I'm like, and a guitar solo. So we put everything in there, we wanted black and white and we want to have a fight scene. There's so much in there that I want to fly at the end. I want to be, a superhero.
You got everything that you set out to get pretty much.
Yeah, we did. I mean, because even the thing about Rambro, we found that water and we had the hostages tied on the whole thing. We were really going, this is my first movie. So we were really going for it.
Yeah, everything in the kitchen sink, and you got it in there. It was great. Ooh, hey, I'm jumping in really quick to remind you to check out Backstory Magazine over at backstory.net. If you've never read us before, you could test drive us on a desktop or laptop by reading our free issue. And folks, our Oscar issue is live. And folks, one thing to remember about Backstory is because we are a digital magazine, we are continually updating our magazine, which means that we have things beyond the Oscars now that the Oscars are over. You could read articles with the creators of Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Amongst Thieves, and the writers behind John Wick 4. So there is a lot to explore in Backstory Magazine. But if you want to become a subscriber and support independent film journalism, and I know you do, you could use discount coupon code SAVE5. That will save you $5 off a 1-year subscription. But look, it would really mean a lot to me to have my podcast listeners and iTunes and Spotify and my YouTube watchers of the Backstory Magazine YouTube page support my passion project. So thanks for considering becoming a subscriber. But now let's jump right back into our conversation with writer, director, and star Robert Townsend about the beautiful Criterion edition of his classic independent film, Hollywood Shuffle. I think it would have worked if it was just a series of sketches and funny Hollywood parodies. But the secret sauce really is the emotional resonance you get of seeing this young actor who's clearly talented, who wants to make it, and having to kind of go to this crisis point of deciding what he's going to do when his family's on set. For the climax of the movie, he has to inhabit one of these terrible characters that are poorly written, speaking just utter trash garbage dialogue that's not a realistic view of any sort of life, and walk away from it. And that's an interesting point to come to. And you layer it throughout the movie, especially as you were just talking about with his uncle giving up on his dream, and kind of at the midpoint, his uncle is, reinforcing that he stay on the path towards achieving his dream. Tell us about infusing that subplot, which I guess you could argue starts at Winky Dinky Dog, your hot dog stand, which is an amazing series of scenes as well.
I guess that there's a part of my brain that I want to give hope. The movies and the television shows that I love the most, there's an aspect that's empowering. There's a part of those shows or movies, whatever they are, that they make you believe in love. They make you want to stand up for yourself. Like Norma Ray, like when I see certain movies and they have those moments where they're heroic. And so with this story, Keenan and I talked about, we want, Bobby to be a hero. In those great movies that I love as a kid, you have the guy that goes, all of this means nothing to me if I don't have you.
Right.
Take your stinking town and get out of here because I care, and they walk away. It's like Jimmy Stewart in Mr. Smith. If they can come into this little sanctuary, come in here and graft and then Claude Rains, the boy is right. He's right. I was wrong. You want those moments. And so for me, with Hollywood Shuffle, the end is that one of those moments where you go, oh my God, he found his voice. Bobby Taylor found his voice, and he goes, no, I don't want to do this. And it was kind of like Bobby Taylor found his voice and Robert Townsend found his voice. I mean, so when you think about, like my career, my body of work, is that it starts with, there's this character that goes, it's not right. And however you find your voice. So, and that's me, like I am Spartacus. It's one of those.
Yeah.
I am Robert Townsend. I am Bobby Taylor. And there will be people that will go, I'll do it. And this is how Keenan and I really work, well together, because then I may say, oh, I'm not going to do it. And then Keenan goes, the other dude's got to say, I'll do it. And we had a guy, Keenan and I both went to this one audition, and there was a guy who was talking crazy to us like this, like, man, the white man got us doing this. The white man. Lester Davis, yes, ma'am, and he messed our heads up because we were like, I don't know if we should go in there for this, man. I don't know, Rob, what you think? Keenan, what do you think? So I say all of that to say that it is a movie and we were trying to figure out how to make it a satisfying ending. It's like, what is it in the Bible? It's like to gain the world and lose your soul. To gain the world and lose your soul. So I think in that moment, Bobby kept his soul. He didn't sell out. He kept his soul, and his soul was intact. So, for me as an artist, my soul is still intact.
Yes, it most certainly is. And of course, that Lester character that you're talking about, the minute your character quits the movie, he's basically ready to take over your role, and he was the guy talking about, should we be doing this, messing with your head. I mean, it's interesting because the way that you depicted casting directors and writers in this movie, it was a great affront, and your cast and the improvisations that they did playing those characters for those scenes, it was harrowing to watch. But it was absolutely hilarious as well.
I say this all the time, 90% of the job is casting. And Lisa Mindy playing the main casting director, I mean, she is an improv genius. We wrote some few lines, but between her improv and Dom Irera, who played the writer, I mean, and Dom is just a stand-up comedy genius, and they just went in. Keenan and I, we were just laughing, but it's all casting. John Weatherspoon, Paul Mooney, Franklin Ajayi, it's all.
And Glazer as the director. I mean, like, it was great. They were pitch perfect. I mean, Winky Dinky Dog was hilarious. I don't know how I missed this for as many times as I've seen the movie. When the manager of Winky Dinky Dog in a future iteration has lost everything and Bobby comes back, to where he worked as a rich man in a tuxedo, the manager's over trying to sell his hoe cakes. It was his big idea. But this is the first time I noticed it. Maybe it was this transfer. There's a box that says hoe cakes on it.
Yes.
And the official spelling of hoe cakes is WHOE, which I had never. Tell us how W ended up in the spelling of hoe cakes, because I was dying at that moment. You do this great parody of film noir, as you were talking about earlier, and it was quite funny. And you have kind of this activator subplot, for the villain Jerry Curl. And I'm just curious because obviously you do an Eddie Murphy parody in the movie. And you talk about how Eddie Murphy was cool with it on your commentary track, but that same subplot ended up sneaking into Eddie Murphy's later film Coming to America a little. And I'm curious if that was because he had seen this movie and liked it, or if he gave you a nod or asked you if he could put it in, or if it just kind of magically appeared because...
Well, here's the thing. Because of Jerry curls and the stains that Jerry curls would leave and people with activators, that was like, back then, every comedian was doing that joke. We put it in the film, but that was like a joke. Like, the brother came in with a Jerry curl the other day and the Jerry curl was dripping, so everybody would do Jerry curl jokes. We just got it on screen. And I think, doing a callback, because Jerry curls were really big. So a soul glow in Coming to America, I just think that everybody, we were all doing Jerry curl jokes. So it wasn't like, special material. We just got it to the screen first, but every comedian was doing Jerry curl jokes back then.
Just wanted to reiterate to our listeners, you did it first. You did it first. The hilarious parody in there, as you said earlier, was sneaking in the movies, your Siskel and Ebert send up. But you said something really fascinating on the commentary track, and I'm just curious to hear a little more about it. You had said that Keenan had not been showing up to rehearsals, and you told him he's out. You're not going to allow him to be in the skit with you for sneaking in the movies. Of course, artists always have creative differences. You've pointed out that you are still definitely friends. I'm just curious, like, what kind of riff that had, because of course, when people do their first movies, drama could run a little high behind the scenes. And I'm curious, when you told him that he's not going to be able to be in that scene with you because he had not rehearsed it, what the fallout was of that, or if it was just like you made up by the end and you just kept shooting together.
No. Let me say this.
Because you use the word fired on commentary. That's the only reason I'm asking.
The thing was this. This was my first movie. All my money's on it, my life savings, everything. So I took it serious. And I knew Keenan was messing around. He was just hanging out with some honey. And it was like, dude, we got rehearsal. And so I'm already shooting with short ends. I got everything, like people going, you can't make a movie. And I'm like, I'm going to make a movie. So in that moment, he's my boy and I love him. So, but it was like, dude, nah, you ain't come to rehearsal, man. We ain't doing that, So, and Keenan, he goes, Rob, that day, I understood how really serious you were, because I wasn't trying to do anything sloppy. And then eventually Keenan says, when he became a director, he was like, I learned all my stuff, my manners from you, because if people are showing up late, I'm not playing that, because, let's come to work, let's handle our business, and then let's go home. But here's the thing, when you're writing partners, you're going to have days where you fight and you love each other. Like Keenan, because I was like, man, I never want to talk to you again. You make that, and he goes, hey man, you want something to eat? Yeah.
Right.
And then it's squashed. It's squashed.
Where in your shooting schedule was that, out of your 6 different shooting times of 2 days each?
I can't even remember. I just remember we had rehearsal set up, and when he wasn't there, I was like, I'm moving on next, because Jimmy Woodard, come on, we're going to do it together, because I was like on a mission. And
I'm sorry to interrupt. It was really that down to the minute in which he just wasn't on set, and that's when you brought in Woodard?
No. So like, for example, if we were going to shoot next weekend, we would be rehearsing on Monday.
Got it.
At Rainbow Rehearsal Room. And so maybe Monday, maybe Tuesday. And because I am like, every nickel, every dime is mine. So I'm like, what do you mean he can't be here to rehearse? I ain't got time for this, And then it's like, he ain't dead, he ain't sick. Oh, he's out with a honey. He met somebody. Okay, got it. Okay, Keenan, and I ain't playing that dude. This is my life savings. Again, he's my boy, so we will fight. And he knew he was wrong, and and it was like, Rob, I get Keenan, and he goes like, okay, but everything worked out. But yeah, it's like being real friends when you go like, don't do that to me, man.
Just had to ask because that was the first I'd heard of it on the commentary track.
Yeah, no, true story. Yeah, because he was supposed to play that character, and when he didn't show up for rehearsal, I don't know if he missed like 2 rehearsals or something, but I was like, this is too serious for me.
Yeah, that's being a good director. You took a risk by doing this parody of Eddie Murphy, which I thought was just really fascinating. I think it's some of the funniest comedic timing in the film, where the casting agents are saying, we want an Eddie Murphy type. It has to be Murphy-esque. And of course, that's what you were enduring in all the different auditions that you were going to at the time. But this nightmare moment when you're trying to like not be Eddie Murphy because you want your own identity, but then you're trying to stifle this rising Eddie Murphy laugh that is being like forced out of you. It was an amazing character moment, but I'm sure that you were probably nervous to film it as well, because when and if your movie was going to come out at that point, which I'm sure you weren't entirely sure of how it was going to come out, you need all the support you could get. And you're targeting the premier comedian in the United States at the time. So it was a very bold thing to do that I think should be mentioned for audiences watching it today.
Well, let me say this, because here's the thing. I love Eddie. As comedians, you go for whatever is funny. You go like, oh, this is funny. So I'm reaching and grabbing toward whatever's funny. And back then, he was the biggest star in the world. So you would go into a room and they would say, we want an Eddie Murphy type. You see the breakdown, an Eddie Murphy type. And then they would, do you have a funny laugh? Can you do a laugh for me? Robert, can you do a laugh? A little bit bigger laugh. Can we see some clips of Eddie, please? Okay. They were like that. And I was like, oh man, this is, well, what about how I laugh? No. Say, man, can you say, man? Like, so there was a whole thing that, we were going through. But, Eddie saw the film and he goes, I get what you were doing. And this is brilliant, because he knew the impact he was having. They wanted everybody to be like him. And so it was just being honest. And the beautiful thing is that because of the honesty, I was rewarded. That he goes like, I appreciate your comedy, your fearlessness, all of that. Do you want to direct Raw? So it was like, are you kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me? I take one of the biggest risks of my life. I didn't want to offend him, but I was being honest and pure. And he saw that and embraced that and said, come with me.
Which is amazing, because Raw as a comedy special just lit everything on fire. It was fantastic. Jive Time Jimmy's Revenge, the fake film within the film that you're making by Mandrill Man Vacuum. That was the screenwriter name that you came up with. I mean, that's a very funny, silly scene at the end. I could have seen stuff like that going further. Was there anything else that you wanted to do of like what was going on? It has like a West Side Story feel to it, of these two gangs coming together, a Latino gang and an African-American gang. And it's just absolutely absurd. I could have seen the movie getting lost in it because you get that feeling that you want more, but you had just the perfect amount of Jimmy's Revenge.
Yeah, well, that was based on all of the movies that we were auditioning for, because they would have crazy references, like, and then he's going to do the James Brown, like, good God, they would have stupid, it made no sense. Right. And they would come in and the afros and Jimmy, Johnny, Doja, Jody, they had all of that. And I was like, this is offensive. And nobody would say anything. So when you look at a lot of those movies, from the 70s, they had a lot of those stereotypes, because you go like, were the movies that bad? Yeah, they would have, a guy get shot and moonwalk as he's dying.
That's ridiculous. I want to ask, what was your toughest scene? What was your toughest scene, either in the brainstorming phase on the page or on set, where you weren't sure that you were going to get through it?
It's so funny because it was a different time. Like back then, I was doing stand-up every weekend I was on stage. So your muscles are really different. You're just used to just, like, hey, how you guys doing tonight? So your muscles are like really strong, and shifting from actor to director. When you do stand-up, you're directing yourself anyway. You are the director. You go, I'm going to do this joke first, this joke in the middle, this joke at the end. So you're directing your show. So I had never kissed on screen before. So when I had to do the scene with Sam Ace kissing the girl, that was the only thing that was awkward, because it's like, oh, now I got to kiss somebody. So that part was a little like, oh, I wrote this. Okay, now I got to do it. And you get a little shy, because you want to do what you see in the movies. Like, come here, sweetheart. Yeah, out of all the gin joints, I love you. I love you too, baby. And you want to do that. And that was the part that was like, oh, I've never done this, And the same thing with Anne-Marie. It was just like, okay, you're going to be the romantic lead now. Okay, kiss the girl. You talk about kissing the girl. And then it's kind of like,
yeah. Well, don't worry. You pulled it off in your film noir. Okay, so fans have kind of debated this on and off for a while, and it's about the ending. and what actually happens. So the question is, does Bobby actually join the post office and give up on acting and was just lucky to have been cast in a PSA for the post office? Or does Bobby just make better decisions in what roles he accepts and he's still a working actor and it's just kismet? It's just good luck that he wound up in a public service announcement for the Postal Service. So, the reason why people have been debating this is because obviously his uncle tells him to never give up. And some people have been, a little confused as to what it means when he's in the post office uniform at the end. And we just want to hear from you what you think Bobby's fate is at the end of the movie.
Well, let me say this. I agree with the latter part of your comment. No, he gets cast in a TV commercial to work, for, a TV commercial playing a postman at the end of it. So he's still pursuing his dream, but he's wiser now. So if somebody said, what's the future for Bobby Taylor? He's going to make it as an actor. And now he has his moral compass in place. And I think at the end, it's like for me, so it relates back to me. At a certain point, I was doing a lot of TV commercials and I was making my living doing TV commercials. And I would just say to my friends, I had dignity in 60 seconds. Because commercials always had, there's a certain kind of, they weren't promoting stereotypes. It would be like, I'm the guy at the bank. I'm the guy that, is the mover that needs deodorant. It's those things. So when Keenan and I thought about the ending of the film, Keenan was like, Rob, you made a living doing TV commercials for years and made great money. And I think Bobby would do the same thing. He would find another way and still do theater or whatever he dreamed of. But it gave him a cushion so that he wouldn't have to go in there and audition for all these stereotypical parts.
Cool. Perfect. I mean, some people also wondered if he was doing TV commercials while working at the post office, but I think that's again a step too.
No. It was just that he just happened to get cast in a TV commercial,
right?
Playing a postman. Because sometimes it happens in real life where you go like, oh, I'm not going to ever do anything like that, and then it's like, you mean there's a commercial and I'm going to be playing a postman and it's a big commercial? It's so that's really what it was. And no, he wasn't working at the post office. No, I worked at the post office. I was an 89-day sub. That's what they called it, where you came in the summer and in between college, I unloaded trucks and I would do my Shakespeare monologues and my monologues as I was unloading trucks going to Milwaukee from Chicago. So no. He was just doing a commercial.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for finally putting it to rest as to the true fate of Bobby. I know that this is the most common question you probably get asked, but could there ever be a sequel to the Hollywood Shuffle? In contemporary times, now that so much time has passed, there's still more stories to tell about being an African-American writer, director, hybrid actor in Hollywood, because I would think there's room.
Well, you know what? There is room for it. The last thing I saw that I thought captured, a new version of Hollywood Shuffle was when Donald Glover did Atlanta and he did the episode Mr. Chocolate. And, it just, yes. I thought that was genius. And I was like, oh, wow, it's so smart and so funny the way he did it. So the thing to me is that, because people have asked about, remakes and what have you, it's just that now you'd have to look at it through different lenses of creatives that are of color, the changing climate of Hollywood, what their appetite is for, what they're making. So there's a lot of different things, but I hadn't really thought about it. But yeah.
I appreciate you being so generous with your time. I think it's fantastic that there's such a beautiful release of Hollywood Shuffle out there from Criterion. I hope folks go watch it and enjoy it as much as I have. Robert Townsend, thanks so much for chatting with us today.
Jeff, thank you for taking time, my brother. I appreciate you, man. And this has been a treat talking with you. Real talk.
Appreciate you too. Thanks, man. And that's how the Q&A went down. Special thanks again to writer, director, and star Robert Townsend for being so generous with his time and coming down to chat about the Criterion special edition of his classic independent comedy, Hollywood Shuffle. And while you're surfing around online, I hope you also check out Backstory Magazine over at backstory.net. You could read us on a desktop or laptop or via our iPad app, Backstory. If you've never read us before, you could test drive us. And our Oscar issue just came out, so you've got to check that out because it's full of scripts and interviews that we know that you will love. And folks, remember, because we are a digital magazine, even though our Oscar issue is our current issue and the Oscars happen to be over, we keep updating our magazine with new content. So you could read an article with the writers and directors of Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves, and you could even read an article with the writers of John Wick 4. So as a digital magazine, we keep updating with new content from TV and film between issues. And if you want to save $5 off a 1-year subscription, just use coupon code SAVE5. That's SAVE and the number 5, and that will save you $5 off a 1-year subscription to Backstory Magazine. So look, it would really mean a lot to me to have my podcast listeners and iTunes and Spotify and my YouTube watchers of the Backstory Magazine YouTube page, which is where you could see these Zoom casts and see the screenwriters speak. It would really mean a lot to me to have you support my passion project. So thanks for considering becoming a subscriber. The Q&A with Jeff Goldsmith podcast is a copyright of Unlikely Films Incorporated in 2023. All rights reserved. And folks, if you want to get a hold of me, you could find me as Yo Goldsmith on Twitter or Backstory_mag on Twitter. Those same handles work for Instagram, Yo Goldsmith on Instagram or Backstory_mag on Instagram. You could also check out my Facebook fan page and I'll respond to you there as well. Or you could be old fashioned and write an email to backstoryletters@gmail.com and I'll get back to you as soon as I can there as well. I'm Jeff Goldsmith, the publisher of Backstory Magazine and the host of the Q&A. Thanking you for tuning in and telling you to stay out of trouble. Till next week.